Hi, I'm Jenny from Merla Fiber Arts. I have been working on a technique for spinning beads into thick and thin yarn without getting that little bit of yarn that runs alongside when you do it in a correspond and they're on a beaded thread, when you do it into a single but they're on little tufts of fiber, or when it's plied. What happens is you end up with this little bit of fiber running alongside the bead. Let me pull this out. And it looks like this. On the outside of the bead, there's that little strip of fiber. And I didn't want that. I wanted the bead completely onto the yarn. So I made this practice skein and I worked out a few of the little kinks that I was coming up against, and so I'm going to show you guys how I did it. So this is Corriedale. I like when I'm practicing to use Corriedale because if I ruin it I don't feel so terrible. And I would advise anytime you're practicing something new, I keep a couple of pounds of this around. I let my kids play with it. It's great for trying new things because it's very affordable. This I have stripped down, and I won't bore you guys with all of that. If you want to strip, great. If you don't, great. If you want really, really thick sections, don't strip. So I've already started this, so let's just pretend this is a leader thread. What I'm going to do is join my fiber. I want this to be symmetrical, so I'm going to do 4 thick sections for each bead. At the end section, or the section that comes up where I want the bead, I'm going to pull it all the way off and then grab this little tail and let the twist build up. The reason that I'm doing it that way instead of letting the twist build up and then pulling it off is that I found that when the twist is in here and you pull it off, you have all this fiber at the end, so you end up with this really long thin section that doesn't match up with the other thin sections in your yarn. If you aren't concerned about symmetry, and I have a huge thing about symmetry, so if you aren't concerned about that, then you could do it the other way. There are 2 different threading tools I'm going to show you. You may have some other ones that you'll come up with. I got these beads really cheaply. They're like a box for $7 or $8 at Walmart. Great for practicing on. Because again, this is not, if I don't care about it at the end, you know, I don't care about ruining it, then I'm not going to stress out about making it perfect while I'm doing it. So I've got this little tiny crochet hook. It's a size 12. I got it at the thrift store for $1. So, you know, you don't have to go spend a bunch of money to do this. I'm going to grab with the little tiny hook and push the bead up on there, okay? And it's just that easy. And then I'm going to join my fiber up and begin making my thick and thin sections. Now, I don't necessarily think that Corriedale is the best fiber for thick and thin. I, in general, like much softer fiber, but this is practice. So we're not going to worry about it being perfect. I've got my bead. So the other method is to use one of these, I think they're for threading braces, threading dental floss into braces. And you can buy them at the grocery store for a couple of bucks, but like I said, the hook was $1. So that's my preferred method, but I'm going to show you this anyways. I keep these around for threading my diz when I'm dizzing off of my combs. So I've got my bead on there. I'm going to slide the fiber into that little loop that it has and pull the loop through the bead, and it brings the fiber along with it. There you go, all set. And I'm going to keep spinning along. Now, sometimes people feel like the join area isn't as strong, and if that's the case when you're spinning, then it's not, then maybe you should practice your joins, because your join should always be solid. You should be able to yank on it in the same way you would yank on the middle, and the presence of the bead should not be affected at all by it being in the section where you've made a join. So I'm just going to continue on stringing these beads right onto here. Now, obviously, if you were just wanting to string these onto a single, then they would all slide down. The reason that this works in a thick and thin is because the thick sections keep the bead from sliding around, which is why oftentimes people will do them in a correspond from beading thread or ply them into your yarn. It's sort of an anchor. And in this yarn, the thick sections themselves are what's anchoring the bead in. So here we go. What can happen is the bead can get caught up on your hook. So I'm spinning on an Ashford traditional, and even though I've got the jumbo flyer on here, it's still got these little tiny hooks. I do have a country spinner, however, that's not the wheel I'm spinning on right now. So if your bead gets stuck, you just want to pull it over the hook manually and then keep spinning. Pull it off at the end, grab it, let the twist run in. Grab a bead. You want your hook to go through your bead. Grab your little tail. Now, I've tried grabbing it up higher. It just gets jammed inside the bead and it's really difficult to pull through. So that's why you want it to be really skinny. Get it as far down the end as you can get comfortably and then push your bead on. Sometimes I will add a little twist there because some runs out while I'm fidgeting with it, but then you just continue. Now, this is a yarn that you are not going to want to thwack when you set it, obviously, because there are glass beads. But I'm going to want to full this yarn. I'm going to want it to have that little bit of felting that will just make it a little bit more structurally sound. Make sure that my thick areas don't drift and it's really strong. So I'm going to soak it in some really, really hot water, and I may or may not use some soap. I go back and forth on this because a lot of people are sensitive to perfumey smells, and a lot of soaps have them. Even Dawn has a scent, which I'm used to, and even my 4-year-old, when she smells the scent of Dawn, says, "Oh, you're washing wool." Oops. Now, see, that's what will happen if your bead gets caught up and you just keep going. The hook broke the bead off. No big deal. Not ideal. So, you always know where the bead was because it's where it's broken. And I'm just going to add another bead right there. I will find that bead later because if I don't, inevitably, my 1-year-old will, and it'll end up in her mouth. We don't want that. So, and that very well could have been because I didn't make sure to do an adequate join. You know, it's talking and spinning. So it's caught. Don't want to keep going again. We just learned our lesson, but it didn't break, so that's a good sign. All right. Let me know if you have any questions.